Geoff Mosher, FanRag Sports, covers the Eagles, and he joins us now with a look at Eagles and Giants with Jeff. I don't know, how much has the Eagles-Giants game even been discussed so far this week?
Wait, the Eagles are playing the Giants this week?
Attaboy, Bosch.
I didn't even realize the Eagles were playing. I thought there was just news in the team itself. No, it's funny. It's really kind of you've got a team with the Giants that are going nowhere, right? And then you've got the Eagles with so many issues now to deal with without Carson Wentz. So it is strange to be Thursday and not really have mentioned the opponent this late in the week.
Let me ask you this. You were on the beat full time for Nick Foles when he was the starter, and there was a time there where people wanted to sign him to the big money, man. They wanted to make him the franchise quarterback, that he was the guy. Do you expect an even better Foles this time around, a more seasoned guy than the guy that was here in 2013, went 14-4 for a stretch?
That's a good question, Mike. I'm not exactly sure what to expect, but I can say that everything happened so fast for him that first year in 2013, especially. I mean, he played a lot. He played a decent amount in 2012, but then when he went to starter in 2013 and had the 27-2 and the historic passer rating, everything happened so fast, and it almost set an improbably high standard for him. So that when he came back the next year, it seems like some of the flaws that you probably would find a lot of quarterbacks were exacerbated for him, and and it probably weighed on him mentally as just a guy kind of still getting his feet wet in the league. I think the biggest thing about him is that after the failure in St. Louis, he goes to Kansas City, goes in there and starts to look a little bit more like the Nick Foles you may remember, a competent quarterback, and played a lot better, in limited doses. But then, then he comes in here with the Eagles last week and again, looks competent as well.
Geoff Mosher,
so
FanRag.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to say I expect a more competent type of caliber of play. I think that he's ready for this.
Yeah, he has been on a journey. I mean, he went to St. Louis, I guess, and was the quarterback there. That didn't really work out, and then he went to back up in Kansas City, where he played really well last year in a game that he got pressed into some duty. But here he comes back as the backup, and then he gets pressed into duty where he's on a team with an MVP candidate, and now it's just a totally different spot for him. But as you write at FanRagSports.com, that now with Wentz done, it's not Foles that really needs to be Wentz. It's Doug Pederson that really needs to be the MVP of this team.
Yeah, and I say that because, and as much as Doug tried to downplay this, he can't, he gave the keys to the offense to Carson and said, go. You're that good, you're that smart, you're that intelligent, you're that talented. And not to disparage Nick, but if he just did the same thing with Nick, then that means that Carson's not special, and we know that that's not the case. So I think he's obviously going to have to be a little bit more on his toes as a play caller, a little bit take back autonomy of the offense as a head coach / offensive coordinator, play caller, and be a little bit more, a lot more involved in the way the offense is run than just saying, all right, Nick, there you go out there and do what Carson did. That's just not probable and likely, and nor is it feasible.
Geoff Mosher with us. Hey, Jeff, you also talk about the Eagles' defense, too, because if it's going to be Nick Foles, then you hope that the Eagles' defense, or Eagles fans hope that the defense steps up and becomes that high-caliber defense. And in the loss to Seattle and even the win to the Rams, there were some signs of that defense getting a little leaky, if you will, or allowing some more yards. Are you concerned about the defense moving forward?
I mean, it's like, it depends on how you look at it, D, right? It's like they did play, on the road both games, and they did play the tied for the number one offense in the Rams, and you can see definitely a step back, but you also saw a step up in competition. And then, with the Rams game, yeah, they gave up a lot of points, but in the fourth quarter, they really put the clamps down on Gurley, and then they had 2 turnover plays with Chris Long and then with Brandon Graham at the end there. But I'll say this, over the next 3 games, and then even in the playoffs, they need to be a defense that kind of reminds you of what the Broncos did a couple of years ago, the Seahawks did. Now, I don't know if they have the same amount of talent, man for man, as those 2 teams did, but I think they need to hold opponents under 21 points consistently. Because if the Eagles score 24 points, I think that's a pretty fair expectation. It's a lot less than with Carson, but I think you have to expect a little bit of a drop back in the offense.
with a guy like Gurley that looked pretty dangerous for most of that game until the end. Where do you see the problem on the opposite side? Is that the linebackers and their issues? Is it the D-line? The vulnerability against the run comes from where, in your opinion?
Well, going back to the LA game, I think it's two things. One, you're playing Gurley, but also that offense was very motion-oriented. It was very misdirection-oriented, and then you throw on top of that an all-pro running back and a play caller, and McVay does a great job. So, I'm not trying to make excuses for the Eagles. I do tip my cap to the opponent a little bit there. We'll see over the next 3 games if they kind of get their groove back against teams that aren't as good offensively. So, but I mean, you have to assume at some point in the NFL, you lose certain guys, you play a lot of nickel and dime, you don't have Joe Walker to play base, that you're going to get exposed by good personnel, and they did a little bit. Again, it was important that they came back and had a great fourth quarter against the Rams. So, but certainly in the playoffs, I mean, you're talking about the best of the best, whether you're facing Breeze or Wilson or whether it's Aaron Rodgers or Matt Ryan, they're going to struggle in some areas. That's natural to expect, but you hope that they have, maybe come together a little bit and just start to play like the defense that did against the 49ers, Broncos, and Bears.
What do you think of the job Jim Schwartz is doing so far to date, and how much is that a key to the Eagles' success that they've had?
I think he's done a really good job. I really do. I think I think the fact that he's been able to rotate so many different players, he's been able to overcome a lot of injuries by certain packages that cater to certain guys' strengths. He's been able to play guys, just getting in snaps in certain games just to have them prepared in case they have to play. So, I think he's done it. Listen, right now this year, I think he's been as crucial as any coach on the staff.
Geoff Mosher's with us here. Let me ask you, going back to Foles a little bit here. Do you think the weapons he has this time around are better than – he had Deshaun Jackson. He had Riley Cooper, who had a great year that year. With Sean McCoy, yeah. I think Ertz was a rookie back then, but and that offensive line might have been a little bit better than the way, this line is right now anyway. We'll get to that in a minute. But do you think that Foles has more to work with in this offense?
It's a great question. I've been kind of going back and forth on that the last few days. I think, and I'm writing a story on FanRag about this, so I'm glad you asked. We know Nick Foles likes to do based on his history is throw the ball deep. He's good. He has fairly good deep ball accuracy, and he probably likes to look deep more so than even Carson Wentz. The Eagles have not been an explosive offense this year. I think they're number one in time of possession and very middle of the pack as far as plays over 30 and 40 yards. But you go scroll back through Nick Foles' career, and he has a lot of plays where he's hit guys on 30, 40 yards, 50 yards. And, as you mentioned, he had Deshaun Jackson. He had Jeremy Maclin at times. I forget. I guess he had Tyreek Hill a little bit last year in Kansas City. So I'm interested to see if he can maybe bring that back to this offense. And not that it needs it. It's been a great offense, but maybe if that's maybe it looks a little different than with Carson there. You're not going to see the great athleticism in the pocket, but you might see Torrey Smith catch a few more passes. You may see Alshon get a few more of those 50-50 chances that we thought that it seemed like Carson didn't want to always throw to Alshon. But he certainly has it's a really good question. Is this his best set of weapons? When he came up with the Eagles, he had LaShawn McCoy, he had Deshaun Jackson. I don't remember. I think only 1 year, his first year, he had Deshaun and Jeremy on the same time, right? He had Brent Selleck as the main tight end, but now he's got Ertz, and now he's got Jay Ajayi, and now he's got Alshon Jeffrey. So it's certainly not worse. If it's better, it might be a little bit better and more balanced and more well-rounded. And that, I think, will help him. I didn't even mention Nelson Aguilar compared to, say, Jason Avant. So.
Right. And the one thing is, you had that line with Jason Peters back then. Kelsey was still here. I guess Evan Mathis and Harriman. Lane was a rookie. This left side of the line has been an issue the last couple of weeks. Wisniewski's banged up. Vaitai has not played exceptionally well the last couple of weeks. So that could be a big difference is the offensive line. If they can't protect Foles, that's where the Eagles have excelled. Even when the line has not been great, Wentz covers that up a lot.
Absolutely. You hit it right on the head, Mike. And that's why I say Doug Pederson needs to take a little bit more autonomy of this offense. And he may need to come out with extra tackle. He may need to come out with more 2 and 3 tight end sets, 12 and 13 personnel there to protect the left side and not wait until Big V gets beaten to do that. Do it right off the bat or, just kind of run the ball more, maybe more so than he did with with Carson, just to be able to protect both the left side of the line and the quarterback. Because, and listen, we know Nick Foles. He's got that tendency to drift in the pocket and backpedal and hold on to the ball a little bit too long. He's just not going to make the magic plays and the Houdini acts in the pocket that Carson would make.
Geoff, you touched on it. Oh, there's a game this week. Yeah, a lot of the talk early in the week was about the quarterback situation with good reason. What did you make of all the people that were calling for Colin Kaepernick or RG3? Or then there was something on social media, Jeff Garcia, I think it was a joke, but he was out there throwing the football like, I'm available. All these guys, and Eagles fans don't know a lot about Sudfeld. What can you tell us about him? And what did you make of all that talk of all the other names? Like, you got to bring this guy in.
I think it's ridiculous, and I think people underestimate what goes into being a professional athlete, whether you're a backup or a starter or a third stringer. There's a bunch of people who think that they should have gone out and got either Romo or Kaepernick or Vic to replace Foles, and that's just ludicrous. I mean, these guys haven't thrown a pass since the end of last year. Many of them have just kind of, like, if you're in the broadcast booth like Tony, you think he wants to come and take a hit? Like, he's done. These guys are done, and it's ridiculous. The only one that's not probably done is Colin, right? He probably wants to get back in the league, but are they going to just all of a sudden sign Kaepernick and be a better team now when he hasn't thrown a pass since the end of last year? It's ridiculous. And then the people who say, no, you bring him in as a backup over Sudfeld, I say, which one of those guys is going to be like, oh, yeah, I'll go play and be a backup to Nick Foles for the next 3 weeks? That's
right.
You just can't have, listen, I hate to be the bearer of realistic but bad news, but if you're down to your third-string quarterback in the NFL in the playoffs, like Arizona was a few years ago when they had to play like Lindley or Logan Thomas or whoever it is, you're screwed. And that's just the reality of it. So get used to it. It's either Nick Foles is going to do this thing or you're just not doing it at all. There's no saviors out there. It's ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, and the thought of that, you just said it, the thought that some guy's going to come in with 3 weeks left in the season and be prepared and ready to play a playoff-level game is just preposterous. I can understand the conversation. I can understand the conversation at the midway point of the year. If, hey, you lose your quarterback halfway through the year, you go to a guy, you want to upgrade the backup halfway through, not with 3 weeks left in the year.
Absolutely. The timing of this is really what drives the conversation. I mean, these guys are, as good as they are, they don't roll out of bed and just show up at an NFL facility and get ready to win a game. I mean, that like I said, it underestimates what guys like Nick and Nate do during the week. They watch film, they dissect defenses, they help Carson Wentz, they have mental reps, they're there, they're throwing in practice, they're in game shape. Like, which one of those guys is going to be in game shape? And even if it's 3 weeks or 4 weeks that they don't have to play, you think they're going to just step into a playoff game and give the Eagles a great chance to win? It's ridiculous.
So, Moshe, if the narrative is to take some of the burden off Nick Foles by running the football, who would you like to see get the majority of those carries?
It's got to be Ajayi, I would think. I mean, he's got to be your bell cow. Well, maybe not your bell cow in the traditional sense, but he needs to be the one that gets most of the carries. He's their most explosive runner. He's fresh. He's ready to go. You see it. You saw it last week against the Rams. I mean, when he gets the ball, he makes more good plays than bad ones. So I think LeGarrette Blount doesn't have to completely get relegated to 2 or 3 carries a game, but Ajayi's got to be the guy.
Geoff Mosher on Twitter at Geoff Mosher NFL. And the Eagles getting ready for the Giants in the Nick Foles era 2.0. A lot more important. I'll say this, Geoff. Home field was important anyway, but if they don't get home field without Wentz, the feeling you'll have of your expectations change drastically, don't you think? Because if you play a home game and it's Nick Foles against Case Keenum, you almost feel like you have the better guy.
I would think so. I agree. I think home field is crucial. It's cardinal. I think they can win it. I think they will get it unless we see a real step back with Nick, but I don't anticipate that. But, yeah, I believe it's absolutely important.
All right, and that'll play out the next 3 weeks. Geoff Mosher at FanRag Sports. Check out his coverage of the Philadelphia Eagles. Thanks, pal.
All right, guys, thanks.